The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the hum of distant traffic and the flicker of neon signs. In a small study lined with books, an old historian bent over his desk. His fingers traced the faded ink of manuscripts written centuries ago, words that seemed to breathe with life even now. The lamp cast a golden glow over his face, revealing eyes that carried both wisdom and worry. For years he had studied the prophecies of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the visions of Ibn Arabi, and the cryptic symbols of modern power. Tonight, as the clock ticked toward midnight, he felt the weight of centuries pressing down. "The time we have awaited," he whispered, "is here." Outside, the city pulsed with restless energy. Skyscrapers pierced the sky like spears of glass and steel, their lights shimmering like fallen stars. In Dubai, towers rose higher than mountains, monuments to human ambition. Yet beneath their brilliance lay unease. People hurried through the streets, their conversations filled with fragments of prophecy. Earthquakes, pandemics, talking animals, unseen forces. In cafes, young men debated the meaning of hadiths. In mosques, imams spoke of signs that seemed to unfold before their eyes. And in the corridors of power, economists and strategists whispered about a world order shifting beneath their feet. The historian leaned back, closing his eyes. He remembered the words of the prophet, "The hour will not come until the barefoot and poor compete in building tall buildings." He thought of the towers rising in Arabia, symbols of wealth amassed in mere decades. He remembered another warning, "Time will pass quickly, years like months, months like weeks." And indeed, the world seemed to race forward, days vanishing like sand through fingers. He opened his window. The night air carried the scent of rain, unusual for this desert city. He thought of the prophecy that Arabia would return to rivers and meadows. Already green shoots had begun to appear where once only sand lay. The signs were not distant, they were here, unfolding in plain sight. Far above, satellites drifted silently, their eyes fixed on the earth. They mapped every movement, every conversation, every secret. Yet even they could not see what the historian feared most, the unseen forces, the Jinn. He recalled Ibn Arabi's words, describing 3 levels of contact: accidental, intentional, and contractual. At the 3rd level, danger began. Jinn did not merely whisper. They commanded, manipulated, and deceived. The historian imagined a council of world leaders gathered in a secure chamber, guarded by walls of steel and encrypted networks. Yet in the corner, unseen, a Jinn listened, memorized, and vanished into the shadows, carrying secrets to its master. "This is not myth," the historian murmured. "This is the system of Dajjal." The city outside seemed unaware of the invisible war. Couples laughed in restaurants, children played in parks, and merchants sold their wares. Yet beneath the laughter lay tension. Earthquakes shook distant lands. Rivers dried. Pandemics spread. Each event was a thread in a tapestry woven long ago. The historian rose from his chair and walked to his shelves. He pulled down a worn copy of Ibn Arabi's Futuhat al-Makkiyah*. The pages spoke of winds, plagues, and chaos. He read aloud, "This year the winds are many and strong. Events begin with the wind." He thought of storms, hurricanes, and fires that had already scarred the earth. Was this the beginning? He turned to another passage, "In this year, animals of the donkey kind perish." He pondered its meaning. Was it a plague among livestock? A collapse of agriculture? Or a symbol of economic ruin? The words were ancient, yet they seemed to echo with modern relevance. The historian, as thoughts drifted to the Economist cover for 2026, a cake adorned with the number 250, surrounded by symbols of war, satellites, and chaos. To the untrained eye, it was a celebration. To him, it was a warning. The decline of America, the rise of new powers, the reshaping of the world order. "The curse of Pax Americana," he whispered, "is flickering out." He imagined the future. Rockets streaking across skies, drones clashing in battles unseen, satellites sabotaged, digital darkness spreading across networks. He saw leaders raising swords not of steel, but of technology chips, algorithms, artificial intelligence. He saw minds connected to machines, controlled like characters in a game. And he saw the Jinn, cloaked as aliens, descending in forms that dazzled and deceived. Humanity would believe they were saviors from the stars, but in truth, they were servants of Dajjal. The historian closed the book and sat in silence. His heart was heavy, but his faith was firm. He knew the prophet had warned of these times, not to frighten, but to prepare. The signs were not the end, they were a test. Outside, the city lights shimmered. Somewhere, a child laughed. Somewhere else, a man wept. The world moved forward, unaware of the storm gathering. The historian whispered a prayer. O Allah, guide us through the fitna. Protect us from deception. Grant us strength in the days to come. And as the night deepened, he felt the weight of centuries pressing closer. The awaited time was no longer a distant prophecy. It was here, unfolding in the shadows of 2026. The historian's study grew colder as the night deepened. He lit another candle, its flame trembling, as though it too sensed the weight of what was being revealed. On the desk before him lay a collection of hadiths, each one a fragment of a puzzle that seemed to fit perfectly into the world outside his window. He whispered the words softly, as though afraid the walls themselves might listen. The hour will not come until the barefoot and poor compete in building tall buildings. Far away, in the desert cities of Arabia, towers of steel and glass clawed at the heavens. Dubai's skyline glittered like a crown, each skyscraper taller than the last, each one a monument to ambition. Men who once walked barefoot across the sands now commanded fortunes that rivaled empires. They competed not in wisdom or faith, but in height and grandeur, in the race to touch the sky. The historian imagined the prophet's companions hearing those words 14 centuries ago. How impossible it must have sounded then, how absurd. And yet here it was, unfolding before his eyes. He turned to another passage. Time will pass quickly, years like months, months like weeks. He thought of the modern world, where days vanished in the blur of screens and schedules. People spoke often of how time seemed to accelerate, how weeks slipped away unnoticed. Technology had compressed life into moments, and the rhythm of existence had grown frantic. The prophecy was not abstract, it was lived reality. But the warnings did not end with towers and time. The prophet had spoken of dangers unseen, threats that could not be measured by human eyes. The historian's voice trembled as he read, "The true threat will come from the unseen worlds." He imagined the Jinn, beings of fire, moving silently among humanity. They whispered into hearts, sowed doubt, and manipulated emotions. Ibn Arabi had written of their power to take shape, to appear as lost loved ones, to deceive with illusions so convincing that even the wise might falter. The historian closed his eyes and saw a vision. A grieving mother confronted by the image of her dead child, brought forth by a Jinn, under Dajjal's command. She would believe her child had returned, and in that belief she would fall into deception. The thought chilled him. He remembered Ibn Arabi's teaching of 3 levels of contact with Jinn: the accidental encounter, the deliberate communication, and finally, the dangerous pact of service. At that 3rd level, humanity no longer sought knowledge, it surrendered control. The historian's mind wandered to the modern age. Intelligence agencies gathered secrets with satellites and surveillance. But what of the unseen spies? What of the Jinn who could slip through walls, listen to conversations, and vanish without trace? He imagined a council of world leaders, their words guarded by encryption and steel, yet overheard by a presence invisible to all. "This is not myth," he whispered. "This is the system of Dajjal." The candle flickered violently, as though in agreement. He turned another page and found the words of Imam Ghazali. Jinn could whisper into hearts, influence thoughts, and alter emotions. What would happen when such powers were organized into armies, commanded by a single master? The historian saw it clearly. Battalions of Jinn infiltrating minds, manipulating leaders, causing chaos in the world. They would not march with banners or weapons, but with whispers, illusions, and fear. He rose from his chair and walked to the window. The city below seemed peaceful, but he knew the signs were everywhere. Earthquakes shook distant lands. Rivers dried. Pandemics spread. And in the shadows, unseen forces prepared for war. The prophet's words echoed in his mind. The hour will not come until earthquakes increase. He thought of Istanbul, a city perched on fault lines crowded with millions. One day, perhaps soon, the ground would tremble, and the prophecy would unfold in devastating clarity. The historian's heart grew heavy. He knew these signs were not meant to frighten, but to awaken. They were warnings, reminders that the world was not eternal, that humanity was being tested. He whispered a prayer, his voice breaking. "O Allah, grant us strength to see truth from falsehood. Protect us from the deception of denial. Guide us through the trials of the unseen." Outside, the wind stirred, carrying with it the scent of rain. Somewhere in the desert, green shoots pushed through the sand, fulfilling another prophecy. Arabia returning to rivers and meadows. Somewhere else, the Euphrates dwindled, its waters retreating, hinting at treasures and conflicts yet to come. The historian closed his book. The signs were not distant, they were here, unfolding one by one. And as the night deepened, he knew the world was moving closer to the hour foretold. The time of signs had begun. The historian's candle had burned low, its wax pooling like molten gold across the desk. He leaned forward, eyes fixed on the words of Ibn Arabi, the mystic who had written centuries ago of forces unseen. Tonight, those words felt less like ancient philosophy and more like a mirror reflecting the present. He whispered to himself, "Dajjal will not come alone. He will come as a system, the invisible army." In his mind's eye, the historian saw it clearly. Not a single man, but a vast network. A system woven from deception, technology, and the unseen powers of the Jinn. These beings, created from smokeless fire, had long existed in the shadows of human history. Kings, sorcerers, and secret societies had sought their aid, forging pacts that blurred the line between myth and reality. Now, in the age of satellites and artificial intelligence, the Jinn were no longer whispers in the desert. They were soldiers in an invisible army. The 3 levels of contact. The historian recalled Ibn Arabi's teaching. 3 levels of human contact with Jinn. The first, accidental encounters, fleeting glimpses, strange sounds in the night. The second, deliberate communication, rituals and invocations, limited exchanges of knowledge. The third, the dangerous pact, where humans and Jinn entered into mutual service. It was at this 3rd level that the historian shuddered. Here, humanity no longer sought wisdom, it surrendered control. Here, the Jinn became not companions, but commanders. A vision of deception. He closed his eyes and saw a vision. A grieving man sat alone, mourning the loss of his father. Suddenly, a figure appeared before him. His father's face, his father's voice, his father's embrace. Tears filled the man's eyes. "You've returned," he whispered, but it was not his father. It was a Jinn, shape-shifting, deceiving, sent to ensnare him in Dajjal's web. The historian's heart raced. He knew that many would fall into this trap. Those who did not know the hadiths, those who had not prepared, would believe the illusion. They would surrender to the deception. The Jinn as spies. The historian turned to another passage, this time from Imam Ghazali. Jinn could whisper into hearts, influence thoughts, and alter emotions. But what if such powers were organized, militarized, commanded by Dajjal himself? He imagined a council of world leaders gathered in a secure chamber. The walls were thick, the networks encrypted, the guards vigilant. Yet in the corner, unseen, a Jinn listened. It memorized every word, every plan, every secret. Then, in an instant, it vanished, carrying the intelligence to its master. "This is not myth," the historian murmured. "This is espionage beyond human comprehension. The structure of darkness," he remembered another hadith. Iblis has a throne from which he commands his forces. This was not metaphor, it was organization. The Jinn were not scattered spirits, they were an army with ranks, leaders, and chains of obedience. The historian imagined their structure: battalions of whisperers, divisions of deceivers, regiments of illusionists. Each one trained not in weapons, but in manipulation. Their battlefield was the human heart. Their weapon was fear, the weakness of humanity. He thought of human frailty, a moment of anger, a moment of pride, a moment of despair. Each emotion was an entry point, a door through which the Jinn could slip. They observed, recorded, and exploited. The historian whispered, "They know us better than we know ourselves." The coming fitna, he turned back to the hadiths. The prophet had warned that in the end times truth and falsehood would mix until people struggled to distinguish them. This, the historian realized, was the golden era of the Jinn. They thrived in confusion, in deception, in the blurring of lines. He imagined the year 2026, when technology and metaphysics would intertwine. Artificial intelligence decoding emotions, machines reading thoughts, Jinn whispering into algorithms. The boundaries between human and unseen would dissolve. The war of shadows. The historian rose from his chair and paced the room. He imagined the wars to come, not fought with tanks and missiles, but with whispers and illusions. A commander whose army could pass through walls, unseen by radar, undetected by satellites. A force that could sabotage facilities, manipulate leaders, and cause chaos without ever being seen. This was the Dajjal system, a theater of deception, a war of shadows, a network of lies. The historian's prayer. He stopped at the window, gazing out at the city lights. They shimmered like stars, but he knew they were fragile. Beneath their glow, the unseen army prepared. He whispered a prayer. "O Allah, protect us from the deception of Dajjal. Guard our hearts from whispers. Grant us clarity in the age of confusion." The candle flickered, casting long shadows across the room. The historian felt the weight of centuries pressing closer. The Dajjal system was not a distant prophecy. It was here, forming in silence, waiting for its moment to strike. The historian's candle had nearly burned to its end, its flame sputtering as though exhausted by the weight of prophecy. He replaced it with a fresh one, the new light casting long shadows across the walls. His eyes fell upon another hadith, one that spoke not of towers or time, but of the earth itself. The hour will not come until earthquakes increase. The trembling earth. He closed his eyes and imagined it. Cities trembling, towers swaying, streets splitting open. He thought of Istanbul, perched precariously on fault lines, crowded with millions of souls. One morning, perhaps soon, the city might awaken to a roar from beneath, a quake so vast it would shatter lives and leave the world stunned. The historian shivered. These were not distant possibilities, they were warnings, etched into the fabric of prophecy. Arabia's transformation. He turned to another sign, Arabia returning to rivers and meadows. For centuries the desert had been a sea of sand, barren and dry. Yet in recent years, rain had fallen with unusual intensity. Green shoots had begun to appear even around the Kaaba, where pilgrims once walked only on stone and dust. The historian remembered the Quranic verses. "You see the land dry, but when we send down rain upon it, it stirs and grows every kind of beautiful plant." He whispered, "The desert is awakening." The drying of the Euphrates. Another prophecy weighed heavily on his mind. The Euphrates drying up, revealing treasures that would spark conflict. Already, the river's waters had begun to retreat, its flow diminished by dams, climate change, and human greed. Nations argued over rights, farmers struggled, and whispers of war grew louder. The prophet's words echoed. The hour will not come until the Euphrates uncovers a mountain of gold, over which people will fight. The historian saw it not only as a literal treasure, but as a symbol of resource water, oil, land, all becoming battlegrounds in the final age. The storms of change he thought of the winds Ibn Arabi had described. Storms, hurricanes, fires, and droughts. The world had already seen them: oceans rising, forests burning, skies darkened by smoke. Each disaster was a reminder that the earth itself was restless, shifting, preparing. The historian whispered, "The signs are not hidden. They are written in the soil, in the rivers, in the skies." A vision of collapse. He imagined waking one morning to news of catastrophe. A quake in Istanbul, a flood in Mecca, a drought along the Euphrates. Each event would ripple outward, shaking economies, displacing millions, and deepening the chaos. He saw leaders scrambling, scientists warning, and ordinary people praying. Yet beneath it all, he sensed the deeper truth. These were not random events. They were signs foretold long ago, unfolding step by step. The historian's reflection: he rose from his chair and walked to the window. The city lights shimmered, but he imagined them extinguished by disaster. He thought of the fragility of human achievement: skyscrapers, satellites, networks, all vulnerable to the trembling of the earth. He whispered a prayer: "O Allah, grant us patience in trials, protect us from arrogance. Remind us that the earth belongs to you." The gathering storm. The historian returned to his desk, his hands trembling as he turned the pages. He saw the pattern forming: earthquakes, floods, droughts, pandemics. Each one a piece of the puzzle, each one a step toward the hour. He realized that the signs were not meant to terrify, but to awaken. They were reminders that the world was temporary, that humanity was being tested. And as the candle flickered, he felt the weight of prophecy pressing closer. The earth itself was speaking, its voice a rumble beneath the feet of mankind. The signs of the last day were not distant, they were here, written in the trembling of the ground and the greening of the desert. The historian's study was silent, save for the scratching of his pen across parchment. He paused, staring at the flickering candlelight, as if the flame itself carried secrets. His mind drifted to another prophecy, one that spoke not of towers or earthquakes, but of sickness, invisible enemies that would sweep across the earth. The hour will not come until calamity spread among the people. The shadow of disease. He remembered the recent years when the world had been brought to its knees by a single virus. COVID-19 had spread like wildfire, silencing cities, grounding planes, and filling hospitals. It was a reminder of how fragile humanity truly was. But the prophet's words suggested that this was only the beginning. Future pandemics would be deadlier, more cunning, more relentless. The historian shuddered. He imagined a sickness that moved faster than medicine, a plague that ignored borders, a disease that struck not only the body but the mind. The strategy of Dajjal, he whispered to himself. The strategy of Dajjal is clear: weaken humanity, instill fear, and bring them under control. He imagined the unseen system at work. Jinn whispering into laboratories, manipulating scientists, twisting discoveries into weapons. Pharmacies and corporations driven by greed, releasing pills and injections not for healing, but for control. The battlefield was no longer the desert or the city, it was the human body itself. The Economist's warning. The historian turned to the cover of the Economist for 2026. Pills scattered across the page, syringes drawn beside drones and rockets. To the untrained eye, it was chaos. To him, it was a coded message. Each pill represented a fragment of a broken health system. Each syringe symbolized intrusion, manipulation, control. He whispered, "The battlefield of the future is not land or sky. It is flesh and blood." A vision of fear. He closed his eyes and saw a vision. A family gathered in their home, fearful of a new outbreak. The father clutched a vial of medicine, uncertain whether it would heal or harm. The mother prayed, her voice trembling. The children stared at the television, where leaders spoke of safety, of vaccines, of hope. But behind the words lay uncertainty. Was the cure truly a cure? Or was it another chain, another step into control? The historian's memories. He remembered the early days of COVID, when people clapped from balconies, when doctors became heroes, when the world united in fear. But he also remembered the divisions, arguments over masks, vaccines, lockdowns. Humanity had fractured, trust had eroded. He whispered, The next pandemic will not only attack the body, it will attack society itself. The rise of biotechnologies. The historian turned to his notes on biotechnology. Neural chips, genetic editing, artificial intelligence decoding DNA. These were marvels of science, but also weapons in disguise. He imagined a future where corporations controlled not only medicine, but life itself. He saw pills distributed not for healing, but for obedience. He saw syringes used not to cure, but to alter. He saw the human body transformed into a battlefield, its defenses stripped away, its autonomy stolen. The Jinn in the shadows. He thought again of the Jinn. They were not only whisperers of emotion, they were manipulators of matter. If they could move thrones across distances, could they not also influence disease? Could they not twist the unseen particles of life, guiding plagues into the hearts of nations? The historian shivered. He imagined laboratories haunted by shadows, scientists unknowingly guided by whispers, discoveries turned into disasters. The collapse of trust. He rose from his chair and paced the room. He thought of trust, the fragile bond between people and their leaders, between patients and their doctors. Once broken, it could not easily be restored. He imagined a world where every pill was suspect, every injection feared, every cure doubted. A world where people no longer knew whether medicine was salvation or deception. This, he whispered, is the true weakness of humanity. The historian's vision. He closed his eyes once more. He saw hospitals overflowing, doctors exhausted, governments scrambling. He saw protests in the streets, people demanding answers, demanding truth. He saw leaders faltering, their words drowned out by chaos. And in the shadows he saw the system of Dajjal smiling. For fear was the greatest weapon, and sickness the perfect tool. The prayer. The historian returned to his desk, his hands trembling. He whispered a prayer. O Allah, protect us from the plagues of deception. Grant us strength in sickness. Guide us through the trials of weakness. The candle flickered, casting long shadows across the room. He felt the weight of prophecy pressing closer. Pandemics were not distant threats, they were here, unfolding, preparing. The world was fragile, and the system of Dajjal was ready. Have you ever looked at a magazine cover and felt like it was trying to tell you something more? Something hidden, something unsettling? Today we're diving deep into a prophecy, a warning disguised as a celebration. We're decoding the cryptic cover of the Economist for the year 2026. Imagine this, a historian, sitting alone, the room lit only by a single candle. In his hands isn't some ancient scroll, but a modern magazine. The cover shows a birthday cake, frosted in red, white, and blue, with the number 250 on top. At first glance, it looks like a party for America's 250th anniversary, but look closer. The historian sees what others miss. This isn't a celebration, it's a funeral. Around the cake, there are strange symbols. Broken maps, rockets, satellites, syringes, and scattered pills. Every detail whispers of chaos and danger. The cake itself isn't perfect. It's cracked and crumbling at the edges. The historian murmurs to himself. This symbolizes the decline of Pax Americana. The era of American dominance, he realizes, is coming to a close. The number 250 isn't a milestone of pride. It's a threshold of collapse. It reminds him of the fall of Rome, an empire that stood for centuries only to fracture and fade away. America, having reached its peak in the 20th century, is now showing cracks in its very foundation. He can almost hear the flickering out of the American century. Now, let's look at those satellites floating above the cake. They're not just decorations. They're weapons. Lines shoot out from them like a spider's web, representing surveillance, sabotage, and a new kind of digital warfare. Imagine a world where satellites are shot down from orbit, where financial systems are hacked, and entire nations are plunged into digital darkness. Our power grids, our elections, our banks, all vulnerable to an invisible war raging above our heads. The sky is no longer a symbol of peace. It's the battlefield of the future. And what about the rockets scattered across the cover? They aren't pointed towards the stars in a gesture of exploration. They are angled aggressively, symbols of impending conflict. Some are next to syringes and pills, a chilling hint at biological warfare. Others stand beside drones, suggesting wars fought not by soldiers, but by machines. The message is clear. 2026 won't be a year of peace. It will be a year of multi-dimensional war, military, biological, technological, and even psychological. The division isn't just external. On the left of the cover, we see three silhouettes walking together. They represent the other world powers, China, Russia, and Europe. They aren't marching as allies of America. They are rivals, shaking the global system from the outside. But the chaos also comes from within. On the right, a figure with distinct red hair raises his hand, a clear symbol of the populist movements causing division inside America. The cake, representing the nation, is surrounded not by unity, but by deep, dangerous division. At the very center of the cover, two swords are crossed. One represents America, the other China. But this isn't a clash of steel. Look closer. The swords are made of silicon, the material of computer chips. This is the new Cold War, a battle for technological supremacy fought with algorithms and artificial intelligence. The wars of the future won't be waged on bloody battlefields, but in sterile laboratories, high-tech factories, and the invisible networks that connect our world. And what are those swords connected to? A cable runs from their clash directly to an image of a human brain, which is wired to a game controller. The historian shudders, and so do I. This is the war for the mind. That red brain isn't a playful image. It's a terrifying warning. The human mind itself is becoming the ultimate battlefield. Algorithms are already shaping our behavior. Social media is manipulating our emotions, and emerging neurotechnology threatens to control our very thoughts. We are at risk of becoming characters in a game we don't even know we're playing, moved left and right by unseen hands. Finally, let's talk about the scattered pills and syringes. In a normal context, they mean healing and medicine. But here, they represent fragmentation and intrusion. Each pill could symbolize a broken healthcare system, and each syringe a tool of control. The historian sees a future where corporations control life-saving medicine, where governments might enforce injections, and where our own bodies are no longer a sanctuary. Health becomes a weapon, and the human body becomes the final frontier of this new, terrifying war. The historian leans back, the full weight of this prophecy crashing down on him. This magazine cover isn't just art, it's a coded message, a warning disguised in cheerful colors. It speaks of decline, chaos, and war on every level imaginable. It marks the end of one era and the violent birth of another. He whispers the candles of the American century are being blown out. What rises from the ashes will not be peace, but fire. As he closes the magazine, the single candle flickers, and the shadows in the room seem to grow longer, darker. This isn't just a prediction from a magazine. It's a reflection of the anxieties and tensions that are already building around us. The cover for 2026 is a wake-up call, a challenge to see through the illusion of celebration and prepare for the trials ahead. The world is changing, and we need to be ready for what comes next. What do you think? Are these just crazy theories, or is there a real, coded message in the Economist's cover? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you want to explore more hidden meanings in the world around us, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Stay vigilant. The historian's eyes lingered on the strange symbols scattered across the magazine cover. Rockets, satellites, and drones were familiar enough, but the shapes of flying discs, beams of light, and humanoid figures unsettled him. To the modern world, these were aliens, beings from distant stars. But to the historian steeped in the writings of Ibn Arabi and the hadiths of the Prophet, they were something else entirely. "They are Jinn," he whispered. "Masters of disguise, servants of deception." He imagined the day when Dajjal, the Antichrist, would unveil them, presenting them as allies from the heavens. Humanity, dazzled by their incredible speed and their strange forms, would believe they were saviors. But in truth, they were Ifrits and Marids, powerful and rebellious shape-shifting Jinn, cloaked in the theater of illusion. The historian shuddered. "The greatest trick," he murmured, "is to make people believe the unseen is extraterrestrial when it is already among us. The deception is to label the metaphysical as physical, to make us look to the stars for that which has walked the earth alongside us for millennia. They are preparing us to accept a lie, wrapping an ancient truth in the shiny foil of science fiction, but the wise will recognize them for what they are." The historian's candle flickered as he turned to another hadith, a profound prophecy from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. "The hour will not come until animals speak, until the end of a whip and the straps of a man's sandal speak to him, and his thigh informs him of what happened to his family when he was away." At first, it seemed impossible. The literal speaking of animals and objects felt like a fable. But the historian looked at the world around him. He thought of artificial intelligence, of the scientists right now who are decoding the complex language of whales, translating the cries of newborn infants, and analyzing the meows of cats to understand their needs. Machines are already giving a voice to the voiceless. He imagined a future, a very near future, where smart collars could translate the thoughts of our pets into human language. He pictured smart home devices that don't just listen, but reveal the secrets of the household, reporting on conversations and activities. He saw our smartphones, our constant companions, speaking not only through programmed notifications, but through literal words, informing us of what's happening back home, just as the Hadith described. The prophecy is unfolding not in a magical way, but through technology. The silence of the inanimate world is being broken. What was once silent will soon speak, and the line between man, machine, and the world around us will blur into one. With a sense of urgency, the historian opened the worn pages of Ibn Arabi's famous work, the Futuhat al-Makkiyah. The words from the great mystic struck him like thunder. He read the prophecy for the year that corresponds to 2026. This year, the winds are many and strong. Events begin with the wind. He immediately thought of the unprecedented storms, the devastating hurricanes, and the uncontrollable wildfires that are already ravaging the earth. Climate change, they call it, but Ibn Arabi saw it centuries ago as a sign, a beginning. He read further. Animals of the donkey kind perish. Was this a literal plague that would wipe out livestock? Or perhaps a devastating collapse of global agriculture, leading to famine? Or could it be a symbol? In many traditions, the donkey represents labor, trade, and the economy of the common man. Could its perishing signify a catastrophic economic ruin, a great depression that would shake the foundations of our society? He turned another page, and the vision became clearer and more terrifying. Plundering increases, patience decreases, chaos spreads. The historian saw it all laid out before him. 2026 would be a year of intense unrest, of crippling shortages, of systems breaking down. Ibn Arabi's visions were not distant fairy tales. They were unfolding in real time, a roadmap to the immediate future. The historian returned his gaze to the cover of the Economist magazine, a publication known for its cryptic, symbolic covers that seemed to hint at the year ahead. Pills were scattered like confetti across the page, and syringes were drawn beside weapons. To the untrained eye, these are simply symbols of modern medicine, of vaccines and healthcare. But to him, they were chilling warnings. He imagined a world where mega-corporations control the very essence of medicine, where governments enforce injections not for health, but for control, and where unseen forces, like the Jinn, whisper into the ears of scientists in laboratories, guiding discoveries toward a darker purpose. In this vision, health was no longer about healing. It was about power. It was about compliance. The battlefield of the future, he whispered to himself, the words catching in his throat, is the human body. Our very biology is becoming a frontier for control, a place where our freedoms can be given or taken away with a single injection, a single pill, a single mandate. The war for our future is not just fought with armies and tanks. It's being fought within our own veins. His eyes then moved to another startling image on the cover. A robot, its arms outstretched as if to declare, "I am here." Automation has already seeped into our factories, our warehouses, and even our kitchens. We see it every day. But the cover suggested something more, a shift that would take place by 2026. Robots would move from the periphery into the very heart of society. They would not only replace human labor, leading to mass unemployment. They would fundamentally reshape our economies, our politics, and our culture. Imagine a world where robots are not just tools, but companions, caregivers, and even decision makers. The social fabric that has held humanity together for thousands of years would be rewoven, or perhaps torn apart. The rise of the machine is not just an economic event, it is a civilizational one. Then he saw it, the most disturbing image of all, a bright red brain tethered by wires to a game controller. This was not a playful image about video games. It was a stark and terrifying warning. The human mind itself is becoming the next battlefield. Every day, sophisticated algorithms shape our behavior. Social media platforms manipulate our emotions for profit and influence. An emerging neurotechnology threatens to cross the final frontier, to directly interface with, and perhaps even control, our thoughts. The war of the future, he whispered, his voice trembling, is for the human soul. The fight is no longer just for our bodies or our jobs, but for the very essence of who we are, our free will, our consciousness, our connection to the divine. The controller symbolizes an external force taking charge of our innermost world. Finally, his eyes fell upon the rockets scattered across the cover. But these were not rockets of exploration, pointing toward the stars with a sense of wonder. They were angled aggressively, like missiles, symbols of war and conflict. He saw the world's leaders drawn in shadow figures representing China, Russia, and Europe walking together, not in unity, but perhaps in a fragile, tense alliance against a common threat or for a common, dark purpose. He saw populism rising within America, threatening to tear the nation apart from the inside, creating chaos from within. He saw two swords crossed, a timeless symbol not of diplomacy or friendly competition, but of open conflict. But this conflict would not be fought with old steel. It would be a technological war, a cyber war, a new kind of global struggle. The historian leaned back, his heart heavy with the weight of this vision. "This is not a celebration of the future," he murmured. "This is a prophecy. The year 2026 is not the dawn of a new era of peace. It is the threshold of chaos." The historian closed his book, his voice trembling but resolute as he looked up. Brothers and sisters, these are not tales of fantasy. They are not conspiracy theories meant to frighten you. They are warnings, they are signs, they are reminders rooted in our sacred texts and in the visions of the wise. The time we have long awaited, the events foretold for the end of days are unfolding before our very eyes. To understand what is happening, to prepare ourselves and our families, and most importantly, to awaken from the slumber of distraction, we must continue this journey of discovery together. If you want to explore more of these mysteries, prophecies, and the hidden signs all around us, subscribe to my channel, Newer Stories. Join our community, share your thoughts in the comments, and let us work together to uncover the truths that lie just beneath the surface of our modern world. Click that bell icon so you don't miss our next video. Subscribe now to Newer Stories, where prophecy meets reality.